Authorities in Mississippi have located a body they believe likely belongs to a teen missing since the 4th of July.
Three things are running in this case at once, and they are constantly being discussed as if they were one. 1. A visit. On the 7th of August, two of the young men returned to Horn Island with their attorneys, who told CNN they were there about 3 hours. 2. A grand jury. The state autopsy was completed on the 31st of July per WLBT and is going before one. No date has been announced. 3. The threats. 3 people have been charged over threats connected to this investigation, per CNN and the Washington Post, and none of them appears to know Wells, his family, or the boating group. Different processes, different rules, different timelines. None of them feeds the others. This video keeps them apart. Nobody has been charged in Nolan Wells' death. Police have not named a suspect. The 7th of August. Warren Hudson and Jax Patalo got back on a boat to Horn Island. Their attorneys went with them. The attorneys told CNN the visit lasted about 3 hours. A third client was expected on that trip. Morgan Seymour was the third client. He didn't go. School responsibilities kept him off the boat, per the attorneys. So it was 2 young men, 2 lawyers, and the same stretch of water where the July 4th trip began. That July 4th trip is where Nolan Wells disappeared. He was 18. His body was recovered on the 6th, 2 days later, per CNN and WLOX. Why go back on the 7th? The record doesn't say. The attorneys told CNN they were there about 3 hours. That's the extent of what's been said publicly. What happened on the island, what they looked at, hasn't been described. We're telling you exactly what's on the record, and that's all that's on it. Here's what the visit is not. It is not evidence in either direction. Nobody has been charged in Nolan's death. Police have not named a suspect. 2 young men returning to an island with lawyers is a legal team's own movement. It is not a law enforcement finding. Holding that line matters, because this is where the circles keep getting tangled. Mississippi officials have urged the public not to rush to conclusions, per Newsweek, and warned that social media speculation could hinder the investigation. A return visit is exactly the kind of detail that grabs attention. Circle 2 is the grand jury. The official state autopsy was completed by the 31st of July, per WLBT. The results have not been made public. They are going to a grand jury, with no date announced. The visit does not feed that circle. A return trip to the island has nothing to do with an autopsy report. Circle 3 is the threats. 3 people have been charged over threats connected to this investigation, per CNN and the Washington Post. So far as the record shows, not one of the 3 has any connection to Nolan, to his relatives, or to the group that went out on the water. The visit does not touch that circle either. What does belong to the investigation is the sheriff's count. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter says his office has interviewed more than 60 witnesses, per WLOX. All 3 of the others who went out that day have sat with investigators. They are witnesses, not suspects. What they told investigators has not been released. That stays inside the investigation. The FBI is assisting with digital evidence because Horn Island sits on federal land. So the 60-plus interviews are the investigation. The August 7th visit is the legal teams. The autopsy is the grand jury. 3 circles, running at different speeds. We're keeping them apart because merging them is how this case gets distorted. But the visit drew attention for a reason. It put those 2 young men back on the water from July 4th, and the timeline around that day has a hole in it. State marine data, which CBS News obtained, puts the boat clear of the island at roughly 4:30 that afternoon. The last time anyone independently confirmed seeing Nolan was earlier that afternoon. Between 3:23 and 4:27, an hour and 4 minutes, per the United Cajun Navy report. That's a volunteer organization's document, not an official finding. So the boat left at 4:31, 4 minutes after that window closed, and Nolan's body was recovered 2 days later. 2 days. For a stretch of water the boat left in minutes. That 4-minute gap is a question. And the circle that might answer it is the one that hasn't moved yet. The grand jury, holding an autopsy whose results have not been made public. That's a count 2, and it runs on its own clock. The grand jury is the quietest circle in this case. No date, no public docket, no announced result. And that quiet is exactly why it gets misread. So let's slow down and read what's actually on the record. Start with the district attorney. Angel Myers-McElrath told Reuters on July 24th that every death in Jackson County, except natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, goes to a grand jury. Every death. Nolan's case, she said, is being handled the same way. Same room, same process, same standard. That statement matters more than most headlines, because it tells you what the grand jury is not. It is not a signal that something is hidden. It is the county's ordinary gear. A death like this one enters it by default. What goes into that room? The official Mississippi State autopsy, completed by the 31st of July, per WLBT. Completed. Not released. Not leaked. Completed. The results have not been made public. They are going to a grand jury, with no date announced. A grand jury is a closed proceeding. Prosecutors present evidence, witnesses testify, and a panel decides whether there is enough to charge anyone. You and I do not get to watch. That's structural. Silence is not an accusation. Now the second autopsy, because there are two, and online they keep getting welded into one. The family commissioned its own examination. Per ABC News and CNN, it came back with a cause and manner of death of undetermined pending investigation. Read that phrase slowly. Undetermined means the examiners could not establish a cause. Pending investigation means the inquiry is still running. It is not exonerated, it is not hidden, it is not yet. The two autopsies are separate documents, with separate examiners on separate clocks. The state's is bound for the grand jury. The family's result has been reported. They may agree, they may disagree. Nobody outside that room can say, and that includes us. And because nobody outside can say, the void has been filling itself with fakes. Mississippi's Public Safety Commissioner, Sean Tindell, has called a purported toxicology report circulating on social media fraudulent, his department's warning carried by WLBT. Fraudulent, not preliminary, not partial, made up. That is what happens when a closed door meets an open feed. Mississippi officials, per Newsweek, have asked the public not to rush to conclusions. Speculation, they warned, could hinder the investigation. A hindered investigation is a slower answer, for the family, for the witnesses, for everyone. So where does the grand jury actually stand? Per NOLA.com, CNN and NPR, no one has been charged in Nolan's death, and the case remains under investigation by both the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and the FBI. The autopsy is in, the date is not, and the official record does not say what the examination found, not the cause, not the manner, not whether it matches the family's independent result. That is the whole of account 2, stated honestly. A completed autopsy, a closed room, and a clock that has not started moving in public. But the people at the center of this case are the same names in all three circles. The friends who were on the boat are the witnesses in the death investigation. Sheriff Ledbetter says his office has interviewed all three. Per WLOX, they are also the ones saying the threats and the harassment have not stopped. Per Souls, WWL, The Griot, and ABC News. And two of them, Warren Hudson and Jax Patalo, returned to Horn Island with their attorneys on August 7th, per their attorneys via CNN. The grand jury holds the state's autopsy. They hold the first-hand account of that boat ride. Different documents, different rooms. The same three young men standing in the middle of all of them. So while the grand jury waits without a date, there is a separate clock already running. One with named defendants, alleged threats, and an FBI investigation. That is account 3, and it is not waiting on anyone. Here's the exact point where the circles touch. It's a single document, state marine data, held by CBS News. Per CBS News, state marine data marks the boat away at roughly 4:31. That is account 1's timeline and account 2's timeline, sitting on the same line. 4:31. That is when the boat moved. That is the last official movement of the day on the water, and that number exists because of a navigation system that records, not because someone remembers. So let's trace the three circles and where they actually collide. Collision 1, the witness list. Sheriff Ledbetter's office told WLOX they've interviewed more than 60 witnesses. All three of the others who went out that day have sat with investigators. Those three friends are the same names appearing in the threats investigation. They are the same names who reported harassment, per WWL, The Griot and ABC News. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist. Same people, different files. The death investigation holds their statements. The threats case holds their complaints. The grand jury holds the autopsy. But the names on every document are the same 3 young men. Collision 2. The digital evidence. Because the island is federal ground, the Bureau is helping on the digital side, the Sheriff's Office told WLOX. The FBI is also investigating the threats against those witnesses and against officials, per Live Now from Fox. One agency. 2 investigations. The same bureau pulling phone data for the death case and pulling threat records for the safety case. Per the Sheriff's Department, the digital evidence rests on a jurisdictional fact, federal land. The threats case rests on another federal fact, alleged intimidation. The FBI is the thread holding both. One file goes forward, the other runs parallel, but the same investigators are reading both. Collision 3. The timeline. Nothing after 4:27 has been independently confirmed, per TMZ. That's a 64-minute window. Then the GPS shows the boat left at 4:31 p.m., 4 minutes after the confirmable band closes, though the last real sighting could sit anywhere inside that hour. 4 minutes. That is the exact point where the volunteer report ends and the official marine records begin. The same afternoon. The same vessel. 2 different sources describing the same afternoon. The volunteer report says the last verified sighting is at 4:27. The state's GPS says the departure is at 4:31. Neither document explains where inside that hour he was last actually seen. Neither document says what happened in between. Collision 4. The threats and the weight. The grand jury holds a completed autopsy with no announced date, per Sebri ELBT. 3 separate people now face charges over threats aimed at a judge, a witness, and local officials, per CNN, The Washington Post, and PBS NewsHour. None of the 3 appears to know Wells, his family, or the boating group. They are alleged to have targeted the machinery of the case, not the people in it, and that means the case is running on 2 clocks. The death investigation waits for a grand jury date. The threats case has already produced charges. One is stalled, one is moving. Both are about the same case. Both are on the same county's docket. So here is what the parallel lines actually share. The same 3 witnesses, the same FBI, the same 64-minute window, and a grand jury that is holding the state's autopsy results, waiting for a date that has not been announced. The threats case is moving faster than the death case. 3 people are already charged, but the charges are about what happened after the death, the alleged threats, the alleged harassment, not about what happened on the boat. And that is the tense part, because the threats investigation is running on a clock that has already produced charges. The grand jury is running on a clock with no start time at all. One case has named defendants, the other has not named anyone. And the official record, per NOLA.com, CNN and NPR, still says no one has been charged in connection with Nolan Wells' death. So the question becomes, which of these 2 investigations moves first? The one with 3 named defendants, or the one with a sealed autopsy? And there is a third possibility, that the threats case is not just parallel to the death investigation, that it is a mirror of it. And that is where account 3 stops being separate. That is where the circles do more than collide. That is where they start to look like the same circle, viewed from 2 different angles. Beat 5, what the record independently supports. We have talked about 3 circles, an island visit, a grand jury, parallel investigations, and we have talked about where they collide. But now we need to talk about the ground beneath them. What officials have actually said, what documents actually show, and where the record goes silent. Start with the witnesses. Sheriff John Ledbetter has put his office's witness count above 60, per WLOX. All 3 of the others who went out that day have sat with investigators. That is on the record. That is not speculation. That is the sheriff's office, in July, telling the public that the witnesses have spoken. Now the same sheriff, same interview, says more. The FBI is assisting with digital evidence. Why? Because Horn Island is on federal land. That is the official reason, per WLOX. Not a suspicion, a jurisdiction. The sheriff's office handles the people. The FBI handles the phones, the data, the digital trail. 2 agencies, 1 case, 1 clear division of labor. And here is what the record does not say. It does not say the 3 friends are suspects. It does not say they are cleared. It says they were interviewed. That is the entire official statement. 60 witnesses, 3 friends interviewed. FBI on digital. Nothing more. Now the officials. Mississippi officials have urged the public not to rush to conclusions, per Newsweek. Their reason was practical. Guesswork spreading online makes the real work slower. That is a direct statement from the people running the case, asking the public to wait. Not because they know something, because speculation has consequences. And the record backs that up. A lab report was moving around online and it was not genuine. Sean Tindell, the state's public safety commissioner, had to say so publicly through the Department of Public Safety, per WLBT. Not inaccurate, not misleading, fraudulent, a fake document, circulating online, presented as official. That is the record. That is what officials have had to correct. Now the prosecutor, District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath, said every death in the county, except natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, goes to a grand jury, per Reuters. Nolan's case is being handled the same way. That is a process statement. It is the DA saying, this is not special. This is standard. Every death like this, every unexplained death, follows the same path. The grand jury is not a sign, it is a procedure. But here is where the record gets interesting. The official state autopsy was completed by July 31st, per WLBT. Completed. The results have not been made public. They are going to a grand jury. No date announced. So the record says, the examination is done, the findings exist, and they are sealed. The examination the family paid for came back undetermined pending investigation, per ABC News and CNN. That one belongs to them, not to the state. That is not official. But it is the only public medical finding in this case. And it says, undetermined, pending, not a cause, not a conclusion, a question. Now the GPS. The departure sits at about 4:30 on the state's own record, per CBS News. That is official data. That is the state's record. The volunteers could only verify a stretch closing at 4:27, according to TMZ. That is a volunteer organization's document. Not an official finding, but it is the only timeline anyone has. So here is what the record independently supports. 60 witnesses interviewed, 3 friends interviewed. FBI on digital evidence. A completed autopsy, sealed. An independent autopsy, undetermined. A GPS departure at 4:31. A sighting window closing at 4:27. And a DA saying, this goes to a grand jury, like every other case. And here is what the record does not support. It does not support a suspect. It does not support a cause. It does not support a cover-up. It does not support a cleared list. The record is a series of procedures, completed and pending, public and sealed. The sheriff has spoken. The DA has spoken. The commissioner has spoken. 3 officials, 3 statements, all saying the same thing in different words. The investigation is ongoing. The process is standard, and the public should wait. But the record has a silence in it. The autopsy results exist. The grand jury has not met. The timeline has a 4-minute gap, and the officials who have spoken about process have not spoken about findings. That silence is not evidence, but it is the space where the 3 circles overlap, and where the next official word will land. So let's lay out what is actually pending, because that's the part of the record most people skip. The island visit is closed. That chapter is done. Warren Hudson and Jack Spatalo went back on August 7th with their attorneys, per CNN. About 3 hours. A third client didn't go because of school. That's it. That visit is complete. The grand jury is not closed. It has not met. The official state autopsy was finished by July 31st, per WLBT. The results exist. They have not been released. They are sitting in a sealed file, waiting for a jury that has no announced date. That is the first pending item. The investigations are not closed. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department is still working. The FBI is still assisting on digital evidence, because Horn Island is federal land, per Sheriff John Ledbetter via WLOX. More than 60 witnesses interviewed. The 3 friends on the boat all interviewed. That work is ongoing. That is the second pending item. And the threats. That is the third circle, and it has moved faster than the main case. 3 people have been charged, per CNN, The Washington Post, and PBS NewsHour. Alleged. Charged, not convicted. They are accused of threatening a judge, a witness, and local officials. None of them appears to know Nolan Wells, his family, or the boating group. The FBI is investigating those threats, per Live Now from Fox, against the people who were with Nolan in his final hours. Against the officials working the case. That investigation is active, it is separate, and it has its own timeline. Now here is the part that matters. The threats are not connected to the death. The grand jury is not connected to the threats. The island visit is not connected to the grand jury. 3 circles, they touch only in one place, the name Nolan Wells. So what is pending, exactly? The grand jury's decision. No date, no hint. The autopsy results stay sealed until that day. The sheriff's investigation. Open, active. No announced conclusion. The FBI's threat investigation. Open, active. 3 people charged, waiting on their own legal process. And the digital evidence. The FBI is on it because the island is federal land. What they have found, no one has said. That is the entire official record. Procedures in motion, documents sealed, investigations open, and one central fact that has not changed since July. No one has been charged in connection with Nolan Wells' death. Per NOLA.com, CNN and NPR. No suspect named, no cause released, no conclusion offered. Mississippi officials asked the public to wait, per Newsweek. Their reason was practical. Guesswork spreading online makes the real work slower. Commissioner Sean Tyndall warned that a purported toxicology report online is fraudulent, per the Department of Public Safety via WLBT. A fake document, circulating, that is how loud the noise has gotten. But the quiet record is here. The state autopsy is done. The findings are sealed. The grand jury will see them. And after that, someone will speak. The DA has already said the process, per Reuters. Every death like this goes to a grand jury. Every one. Nolan's case is being handled the same way. So the pending list has 3 entries. A sealed report, an open investigation, a threat case with 3 arrests. None of them has an end date, none of them has leaked a result. And all of them are still moving. And then there is the last photograph, the one that started all of this. Nolan Wells, 18 years old. He went to Horn Island on the 4th of July. He did not come back. His body was recovered on the 6th, per CNN and WLOX. His mother, Christine Wansley, has had to watch strangers argue about her son's death for weeks. She has seen his name turned into a hashtag. She has seen fake reports and doctored images. She has seen 3 strangers charged with threatening people connected to his case. She commissioned an independent autopsy. It came back undetermined pending investigation, per ABC News and CNN. Undetermined, not a cause, not a conclusion, a question that is still open. And that is the real pending item, the one that the grand jury, the investigations, and the threats all circle around. A mother waiting for an answer about her son. The official answer is sealed. The independent answer is undetermined. And the next word will come from a grand jury that has not been scheduled, in a case where the sheriff has said nothing but process, and the DA has said nothing but standard. The circles are still separate, the record is still open, and the thing that closes it is not a confession from anyone, it is a document, the sealed one. Whatever the state found, a grand jury will read it before the public does.